Good morning, I'm Harley Schlanger from the LaRouche Organization with your daily video update for November 25th, 2024. Well, I'm going to be attaching a link to a discussion that took place last Friday on the International Peace Coalition Zoom call, especially the comments of Scott Ritter, who issued a very strong warning that unless the people mobilize against nuclear war, that's exactly where we're headed, to nuclear war. And what Scott was talking about was the whole aftermath of the decision made by Biden to give Zelensky the go-ahead to launch long-range missile strikes from Ukraine against Russia. The Russians know this is coming from the United States and NATO. Ukraine cannot do these missile strikes without the US and the British missiles, or with the US, British, and NATO technicians guiding them and launching them to strike deep inside Russia. So Putin unveiled the Oreshnik missile on November 21st, which demonstrated a capability that we hadn't seen before, to have a multiply connected, a missile with multiple warheads rather, that can move at hypersonic speeds, avoid any air defense system, and could be used either with nuclear or conventional warheads. It shocked the world. Now, the fact that this happened makes it clear that the Russians, if they choose to, could knock out sites of NATO forces in Europe or the Aegis missile system in Poland or in Romania. Or use these kinds of weapons to hit targets in the United Kingdom and even in the United States. So what Ritter said is that Putin put us all on notice that they can preempt every single plan that NATO has to try to defeat Russia in Ukraine. Now, why did Biden do this? Well, he's trying to trap Trump into remaining in the war against Russia and Ukraine. This goes back to the whole intent of Russiagate, that the media was committed to smearing Trump to say that he only won the 2016 election by the help of Putin, and that's why he was a so-called Putin puppet, that Putin controlled him. And the whole purpose of this was to prevent the possibility of the United States and Russia collaborating on a plan for economic development and peace. Now, Putin said this new weapon system being developed and the demonstration of it was forced on him by two things. One, the withdrawal of the United States under Trump from the Intermediate Nuclear Forces Treaty. That was during his first term. And secondly, Biden's decision to allow Ukraine to strike deep into Russia. That the Russian nuclear doctrine has been changed so that any nation that threatens Russia's sovereignty and security can be targeted by the Russian nuclear force, even if it's a non-nuclear nation, but is collaborating with a nuclear nation, such as Ukraine working with the United States. So this becomes a new capability, a new threat. Now, according to a Russian political scientist, Yevgeny Mikhailov, Biden is using his last weeks in office to disrupt Trump's plans to end the war. And this includes more arms, Biden's shipping more weapons every single day to Ukraine, more efforts to keep Europe online into the fight, with the ultimate goal of bringing Ukraine into NATO, which Putin said from the beginning is unacceptable and is an act of war. Now, some of the cabinet appointees of President-elect Trump seem to be committed to the goal of freezing the conflict, that is, not allowing Russia to win, to prevent a Russian victory. The whole point of that is to ensure that Ukraine can go into NATO and to inflict a defeat on Putin. And what was Putin trying to do? Remember, he was not working to control the United States through Trump. He wanted a security agreement that was in the interests of Ukraine's security and Russia's security. And that had to do with the not allowing NATO expansion. So what we're seeing is a continuation of the Russiagate policy to prevent an alliance or a collaboration between Russia and the United States. And why is that so significant now? Because of the accelerating financial crisis in the West and the emergence of an alternative system around the BRICS and the Global South. I'll talk about that more tomorrow because there'll be some new developments to report. But most importantly on this, the Western transatlantic establishment will not allow an emergence in Eurasia of a unified policy between Europe and Eurasia. And that's their target. And the fact that the BRICS represent that is what is Putin's, what is the major concern. That, well, this is the old Brzezinski doctrine. Let me be clear on this. The Brzezinski doctrine said, Zbigniew Brzezinski, that we cannot allow a rival to emerge in Eurasia because of the rich raw materials and the strategic potential to oppose Western hegemony. The Western hegemony is collapsing. And this is an attempt to use Ukraine as a way of regaining the momentum to sustain the unipolar order. Now, there are some real concerns with the appointees so far named by Trump. One of these is Representative Mike Waltz. And again, over the next days, I'll be talking about this more because we have on the one side a fight to keep Tulsi Gabbard as the Director of National Intelligence because of what she represents as a force against the neocons. But we also have to look at who's being appointed. One of them is Representative Mike Waltz from Florida, a Republican neocon who is designated the National Security Advisor. Waltz reported that he just met with Jake Sullivan, who's the key advisor and I'd say controller of the Biden administration. And here's what he said. He said, for those of our adversaries who think they can play one administration off against the other, quote, they are wrong. We are hand in glove. We are one team in the U.S. in this transition, unquote. Now, he may be saying that to differentiate between what happened on January 6th with the transition between Trump and Biden. But if so, it's a silly thing to do. The idea that the new administration is going to take up the policies of the last administration raises an issue. Why vote out the Biden-Harris team if you're going to do the same thing they were doing? So that was the backdrop to the International Peace Coalition call last Friday. I urge you to give your full attention to the comments of Scott Ritter and then of Steve Starr, the nuclear weapons expert who spoke after him. This is a life and death struggle. We can win against the neocons, but we must be alert and know what the issues are, know what the fight is about. And so you can watch the Zoom call from the International Peace Coalition that will be linked in the description box. And also sign up for the December 7th and 8th Schiller Institute conference. Our whole purpose is to ensure that the U.S. move away from a paradigm of the unipolar order, of the global oligarchs controlling economic policy of all nations, their attempt to destroy the concept of national sovereignty be defeated. But to do it, we have to consolidate the gains that were made in the November election that was an out-and-out defeat of the neocons around Biden. And so I urge you, watch this with great attention, share it, and make sure that people that you know are in the mobilization to stop the danger of a nuclear war that comes from the neocons in the West.